Clare, welcome back to the podcast. It is so good to have you back with us.
Jeff, it's lovely to see you again. And at least, particularly in these times when you're not free to see and talk to people as you might have been before.
Exactly. I'm glad that we're getting to see each other in this time, and I'm super happy that we picked Romancing the Rough Diamond for our book club pick for May.
I'm thrilled.
Joel and Matt have delighted me so much as I've been reading it. Tell us about the Romancing the series in general, because this is its fourth book.
It is, and it didn't set out as such. It set out as a single book, and I thought that was a cutesy title, Romancing the Wrong Twin. And then I thought, no, because that summed up what I quite enjoy. I enjoy romantic comedies to watch, to read, because I love that mix of wit and angst often and romance. But I thought, what fun to take the plots, fairly standard plots, but give them that little bit of humour and that little bit of a twist, because it'll be guys instead of the traditional boy-girl. And it just grew. I thought of other setups, and I thought, let's make this a Romancing the... So that sums it up.
And you
Really?
always do pick interesting, parallels, whether it's a rough diamond or the wrong twin or whatever. Yeah. That must have been fun to come up with those. I very much like, just as everybody does have their favourite tropes, I love the opposites attract, because I think that gives you that spark in a romantic story, that it's not two people you'd expect to see together, that they're not two people exactly the same, with the same ideas and the same backgrounds, because that is the spark, I think, of any relationship. And sometimes it doesn't work, but sometimes in fiction, of course, it does. And so that's I try to create two guys that are quite different in attitude as well as background, stick them together, initially possibly against their will, and go for it. See what happens. Stir it up, see what happens. Do you have a favorite in the series thus far? Like two guys that you just really like?
It's like saying, what's your favorite child, isn't it?
It is. But everybody
it probably
has one.
Yeah, it is Ugly Duckling, I think, because, I just loved the characters. I loved the idea of the plot. I loved the outrageousness of a celebrity family like the Kardashians. I just liked it. But Diamond is a very close second. Yes, because I brought that very much. What I wanted with these as well was to bring out the Britishness. It gave me a chance to do that, and that's what I enjoyed. And the British humour.
That's what I've often just loved about your books, to take a little side trip here, because you also did that a lot with a Kick.
Yeah.
That was very British and hilarious. And I could see some of the small similarities between the two series with that.
Yeah, I loved that, because I set that one specifically in London, where I was, and there's just so much scope in London. There's so much going on. There's so many different people. There's so much fun. There's so much drama. There's so much can be action. There can be just domesticity. I just loved that idea. And Sue Brown and I thought of the series originally because she reckons she saw an alcoholic ice cream shop. But when we went back up on our research trip, it wasn't there anymore. So we thought, hell, we're going to create it. But yeah, I think that's what I like. I'm not a great one for sprawling world building and, extensive backgrounds. I just like the people, I suppose. I like the people and what happens between them.
And if you ever want to do something new, once we get out of these weird times, you could always create a boozy ice cream shop.
One day, Jeff. My new career. We thought we might this summer. We thought we might practice making some. Obviously, we can't share them with anyone. There's a shame. But, watch this space.
I look forward to hearing more about that for sure. So let's get back to what we're here for. Tell us about Romancing the Rough Diamond and about Joel and Matt?
Well, I'm going to just quote you what I put on the blurb, which is this story offers you a gruff designer who prefers digging for treasure, a smooth CEO who's too used to his own company, the glamorous Mayfair world of expensive jewellery, enemies to lovers, a gay royal couple who are fond of mischief, and an embarrassing accident on the Buckingham Palace railings. I call it 4 palaces and a farm when I'm reading like a good joke, because I just love this. I just let rip on. It is a glamorous world. So you've got Joel, who is helps run CEO of a prestigious jewellery company in Mayfair, centre of London, and gets a commission to create jewellery for a gay royal wedding. Needs just that little extra spark from his existing design team, so he calls up this young designer who's dropped out of the industry for a while. He became disillusioned with it, we find out, but they need him back in to help out. And oh my goodness, it's the same guy that Joel met only day or whatever, a week before, at an industry event when neither of them really exchanged personal details but were very drawn to each other. Had a passionate kiss, and then Matt had been called away because his father had an accident. And there it is. I mean, there's a fair amount of barriers in their way to start with. Joel isn't sure he can trust Matt because Matt is very outspoken, doesn't have much time for the commercial world, for capitalism in general, to say nothing of the fact Joel's company had actually recently taken over Matt's family's company in a hostile takeover bid. So there's a fair amount going on between them that you'd think these guys will never get on. But of course they love jewellery, they love doing what they can for the royal couple, they want things to go well, they want whatever. And slowly they find more in common than they did apart.
Yeah, I love you really threw so much against them. And that moment early on when they reveal in the workplace, it's like, oh, it's you. Yep. That's like just like, wow, that's so brilliant and awesome.
I mean, these things have to be plausible, I always think. You do suspend disbelief a little bit, don't you, in romantic comedy?
For sure.
And you have fabulous coincidences. But, they met at an industry do. They're both involved in the industry. It was perfectly feasible.
Absolutely.
Cruel of me, I know.
And I love what you've done with the royal couple at hand here, because you've essentially just fictionalized the royals as we know it, because the prince here is related to Harry and William. You fictionalized our times.
Hey, why not? I mean, this is quite interesting when I saw you were going to ask this question, because I've had some readers saying they loved that. Other readers have said, oh no, I prefer it to be a completely fictitious royal family. Well, no, I wanted it to be recognisable. I wanted it to be part of, because I am quite a royalist at heart, I must confess. I like the royal family and what the things they get up to. I wanted them part of that. And we've had a gay subsidiary wedding in the royal family already. It wasn't one of the primary royals. I thought, yeah.
And the family at whole, I feel like every now and then I hear about royals who I didn't know were connected in some way. So why not?
Exactly. And I don't think there's any. I mean, I hope it, or I intended for it always to be done with respect for the rest of them. I didn't bring other characters in too much. Of course, history moves on, doesn't it? Because I wrote it just after the Harry and Meghan wedding, when they were the golden couple, and that's not necessarily the case at the moment. But
right.
Yeah, you don't want to put too much into a book that dates you or causes issues later, causes a reader's enjoyment to be jarred.
Well, and who would have ever thought that Harry would have been like, okay, I'm done here.
Yes.
Because that was historic.
Because he probably gets quoted the most in the book. So I kept the rest of the royal family into the background, but I saw no reason not to put my guy in there.
And it's similar, I think, to what we saw with Red, White, and Royal Blue last year, is that took a certain amount of present day and then pivoted it, obviously, significantly to an alternate reality. But still, it gave you certain groundings along the way.
I think it helps people to connect there so that they can, when you're, like I do call it four palaces because there are four palaces in it. But people could say, oh, I saw that on the news. I know what the front of Buckingham Palace looks like, what the gates look like when Matt has his accident. Spoilers. And, those things, I think it helps people ground it as well without it being so, calling on so much topical issues. I enjoyed setting it with that in the background. I'm not saying it's easy to create your whole own royal family or your own country, but I don't think that necessarily helps.
Yeah. I think if you were in some other country, it would, or make up your own island somewhere. But if you're going to set it in London, I mean, use what's there.
Yeah.
You said you were a royalist, I think was your term. Did you have to research a lot of the royal side of it for what you were doing?
I did quite a lot, actually, because my whole attitude to research, as I always tell people, is do no harm. So I don't do a tremendous amount, but I don't want to get anything wrong or upset anyone. I did do a fair amount of research. I live quite near Hampton Court Palace anyway, so I've been there a few times, and the other palaces. Researched them. I researched, there's a scene later on in the book when they go to what is like a secret bar at the Tower of London, a secret pub. And so I made sure that existed, that what it would perhaps look like. I did a fair amount on jewellery making, on goldsmithing.
Yeah, I was going to ask about that too, because you make such a rich world out of that jewelry making and the design and what Joel and Matt are ultimately doing for the royal family, and I was fascinated by that. And yet you didn't put too much in either, because it never gets like, why are we going on here about gold or anything? But it's there. It's
that's quite an art, I think, that an author has to try and learn and improve on through their career, on giving enough information to set the scene. And I'm not just talking about description of a scenery, any sort of scene. So it was suggested to me that I put more into the book to pad that out, really, to give that flavour of the jewellery itself, rather than just saying, oh, here's some pretty jewellery. So that was really interesting, though. You could lose yourself in YouTube videos watching goldsmiths at work. It's fantastic. But yeah, and then what else do I make reference to paintings and such like. I mean, they all exist. I try to make sure things exist. And you hope, don't you, that when a reader goes into a book, they know this is a fiction book. This is not, a non-fiction how-to. So to some extent...
Please don't try this at home.
Instructions on how to abseil or something like that. I think they have to realise that there will be a little bit of poetic licence.
And I like your do no harm, because neither take the reader out of it or
because you can't know everything, and there's a terrible temptation to let your research show if you do an awful lot of it. That's why the very best historical writers, it's because they've absorbed that world. They don't even need to tell you what people are wearing, or what they can do it with a word or a dialogue choice. So that's, I think, what you have to aim for. You want to put enough in to give some enjoyment to the story, some context, I think, to the story. But yeah, and I write mainly contemporary. So it's just looking at other places, but at least it's in my time. It's not a different time or planet or... I have done fantasy. And it's a lot of work. It's a lot of work. It's marvellous.
What was your seed of inspiration for this story? Because I could see it coming from any number of places, between having a royal family getting married and the whole jewelry thing, or was it just a root of somehow Matt and Joel as characters that was like, this is this book?
Originally, because I was looking at these sorts of setups to write a book, I wanted something where an enemies to lovers. So I wanted someone who had been betrayed, and Matt did feel his family had been betrayed because the company had been a hostile taken over against their will, or so he thought. And that was where it started. So it was more of my accountancy background, really, rather than anything else. And then, yeah, I know, how boring is that? But then I thought, no, I want this to be really high-end glamour, really at the top of its game, top expensiveness, fashion. So it's going to be Mayfair. It's going to be jewellery, loads of money involved, loads of prestige. And what would happen if you had to work with the person whose company had betrayed you as you foresaw it? And then off it went from there. You had to think about why. Why were both of these guys at this position of their careers at this time?
Mm-hmm. The glamour certainly just adds to the feel between the royals and this high-end jewelry. I think if this was America, we'd think Tiffany. You know,
yes, of course. I mean, we're lucky we have a very glamorous royal family that is known worldwide. However, whatever your opinion is of them, people know them, and they are part of British history and pageantry. And I wanted to make most of that, I think.
And you mentioned a little bit, you know, the template that you have for these. Tell us a little bit more about that, because I think we hear template and we're like that there's, of course, there's formula to a degree in romance, but there's so much more, I think, after you have the template that you pile on to make it extremely unique.
I mean, I think format is almost not the right word. I think there are expectations. So you start with the expectation. The minute you say romance, it is a capital R. It's not a book with romance in it. A romance book has a capital R. It has an expectation of what will happen, what balance there will be, what structure there will be. And when I first wrote all of these, really, there was a prevailing ruling as to the word count, as to what should be in it, as to the level of heat in the romantic scenes, in the intimacy, all of those things. And I think that in some cases I really enjoyed that, because I can just ramble, and so it enabled me to be a little more structured and to think more carefully about what you want to deliver within this book to get to your HEA. Of course, there's always an HEA, happily ever after. But also it can prickle your skin. You can want to break free, do something different. I would have taken some characters a different direction. I would have had more going on, those sorts of things. But I think it enabled me in all that series. I wrote them all on that basis, and they were just right for me, that they were coming out in that format, with that plot, with that aim, whatever.
And really, if you're like me, you like to play with the tropes, because the tropes are fun.
Yeah, they are. And, you know, like we've said, it doesn't mean that it's the same as any other book in that trope. All of them will always be different. And people like the familiarity of, oh, this is a so-and-so book. This is a mistaken identity. It's an opposites attract. You know, those things attract us best. I'm a terrible one-clicker for certain tropes, but we won't go there. And
I think you have to tell us now, what are your favorite tropes?
It's terrible. It's terrible. Rent boys. I'm dreadful. I'm dreadful. The redeemed rent boys. Terrible. I'm awful for it. Immediately, I want to see that happy ever after. But it's, you know, I think that each author will bring its own, and I read very much by author, actually. So whatever they write, I would like certain people's work. Mm-hmm. But I think, you know, it's that lovely mix of familiarity and, oh, what will the author do with it this time? This will be great. What will the guys be like? What, you know, will they be? What ages will they be? What backgrounds? How will they talk to each other? That's the fun.
Mm-hmm. Well, and you've done that in the Romancing the series, because it's always vastly different guys coming together somehow.
I hope so. Yes. Yeah. They just need to be very different. Mm-hmm. I just love that contrast and conflict. But yeah, you have to, and when you hear authors say, "Oh, they're just talking to me," well, my guys don't talk to me because they are only characters, but they do. When you start to write, they do create a voice, and I think that's really important to get that voice, and that is their character. That's how you illustrate their character to your reader. That's your only tool, really, to show, and that's the fun.
Do we get more in this series?
Well, I hadn't planned to. I mean, I've got 2 or 3 brief outlines before I settled on Rough Diamond, actually, that I would have, but none of them went further. I don't know.
Never say never, I guess.
Never say never. Send me ideas. You never know what I might think of. Maybe when this awkward virus-stricken period is over, and my muse perks up again.
Do you have anything that you're working on right now, or more stuff coming out?
I've got a short story coming out next month at JMS Books called Timeslip, which is again contemporary romance, but with a little paranormal time travel twist to it. I've got I'm serializing, I hope starting next week. You heard it here first. Serializing an old book that I'm revamping in my Facebook group. So that will be happening during April, end of April, which when this airs, probably be after. Otherwise, couple of new. I mean, I'd like to go back to the Accidental Baker series, which I got started on. I planned 4 more stories on that. And also I've got a twinkling of an idea about a thief and an accountant that started, but not quite got there yet, but it's on its way. The voices are coming.
Not autobiographical, I hope, that you haven't been mixing in with thieves, have you?
I'm just on an eternal quest to make accountants exciting and worthy of romance. And I know that's an uphill struggle. My God. But one day I will write my accountant vampire. It's coming. One day I've got the outline. I just like to break. I like, not break the expectations, break the, what would you say? Not cliches, but just to twist a little bit, just to give all those sorts of corny old setups. I just like to give just a little bit of a twist.
And you've played with accountants before, because I remember the accountant from With a Kick.
Brian, I know.
Yeah.
He's a bold one, secretly at home. He's a bold one. So, yeah, we're there. We're out there in the world, and I think they deserve all that. It's, someone once told me, you look at all the heroes in our books, and they all either run a coffee shop or a professional sports person or something glamorous. It's an awful lot of people just doing normal office jobs who I think probably deserve a little more glamour and their place in a romance book.
Yeah, I was thinking as we were watching a Hallmark movie the other night, it's like, there's a lot of people who work at magazines here. It just kind of struck me.
It's easy for them to come home to the, or their cop. I mean, lots of people are, but there's an awful lot of people doing very boring stuff because the job doesn't matter really.
Yeah, exactly. Tell us more about this book coming from JMS. Timeslip?
Timeslip. It is. Thank you for the plug of the time. It's an old story that I've had for a while, so I have slightly re-edited. It's one I always really enjoyed because, again, it's a guy who works in an office, a little bit of a sassy character, a big crush on his boss. The boss absolutely cuts him dead, has no interest in any. But somehow, I mean, I don't think it's a surprise. I think it comes out in the blurb. One night, our hero is going to bed in his sleep socks and his ratty old T-shirt, and this fantastically gorgeous boss appears and starts chatting to him as if they've been going out for years and starts to get into bed. And you think, what's happening? What's happening here? And it's just about that little twist as he tries to find, and into the office the next day, the guy's as cold as anything. So what is going on?
And time travel, you say? I'm intrigued.
Yeah. God, all of my family will tell you I struggle with time travel. I struggle. Anything, they just laugh if a movie comes on that's got time travel in it. But just a little twist, time twisting, I think we'd call it.
And what are your issues with time travel? Do tell.
I just can't keep up, Jeff. I can't keep up. I don't, I'm sitting there thinking, well, wait a minute. If he's there, wouldn't that have changed that? And how come he's here now and they know him then, but they didn't know him now? And I lose it. I'm trying to think of anything we watched recently. There's a really grim German series called Dark. I don't know if you've watched that one.
No.
That has 3 different generations. So there's a generational gap. None of them, of course, look like the same person because they're at different stages of their lives. Nightmare. Wonderful. I loved it. But I didn't know what the hell was going on.
How did you solve for that in your own time travel book?
I know. It's, you think, I always think, I suspect a lot of authors do, a setup, a scene, and then you think, well, how did that happen and why? And I like to write a little bit of paranormal now and then, a little bit of something a bit different. I've just had The Right Choice has been out at JMS as well, so there's a few of my older short stories, sort of longer short stories, out that I'm pleased to see the light of day again.
Yeah. So. Tell us a little bit about Right Choice, since that one has just come out also.
Yeah, it's another little twist, but it is totally contemporary, where a guy's getting ready for his wedding and his sister comes up to say, oh my God, Nikki is at the door. And you think, what does this mean? And it's as if Nikki is shouldn't be there. And then we go back through Patrick's memories of how Nikki was, how he first came out, how he first realised he didn't want to date girls, he wanted to date boys, and he wanted to date Nikki. And how they still fought. Patrick was still keeping it quiet or on the down low. They argued, they were passionate, they were... What will happen, Jeff? I don't know.
Well, I suspect, since it's romance with a capital R, there might be an HEA in there somewhere.
I know. I had a review this week. It was a lovely review, but she said, "My God, I was biting my nails." But at the end, obviously things come clear. But I did write it a little bit like that. A little, what is happening? You're not quite sure, but I don't keep people waiting for too long to find out.
Well, that's one of my favorite things, because I read all these books. I know how this works, right? And yet, if an author can make me go, how is this going to actually work itself out? Oh my God, this can't work out. I'm very into that. If I can get tense in a romance, even though I know it has to come out right, there's still that. Yeah. I like when I'm sucked in enough to feel that tension of, will this really work?
You need that challenge, that little bit of insecurity. I don't think people... there is a huge market for angst books, and I very often want to read terrible angsty, where they go through the most awful obstacles to get to true love, if you like. But that in the same way, I quite often don't like contrivances. I don't like things that are hung on for too long, or there's too huge a leap of disbelief, or something. It's just what suits the reader. But I do like, as you say, to think, my God, how is this going to... Otherwise, you need something to support a book, don't you? A novel length. There needs to be something happening, as opposed to an aircraft falling from the sky or something awful like that.
And I don't mind books that are truly, totally sweet and things happen. But those moments where it's like, oh, can they walk back from that? I don't know.
Or that terrible, I didn't see that coming, but, oh no, that's it then. And then you look down and you think, oh, it's only 60%. I've got time for it to catch up and for things to come straight before the end, I hope. I love it. I love reading. I think most of us love reading. Anyway, isn't it? It's that adventure. It's an adventure every time.
Exactly.
Brilliant.
So tell folks how they can keep up with you online so that they can keep up with new releases. Let's tell them about your Facebook group so they can go check out the serial, which will still be there when this comes out. Yeah,
do please go see that, because I went into hiatus for a while. My group because I had a profile, I had a page. I'm also on Twitter. I've got a website. And so it had gone on hiatus, but I have rejuvenated it recently. It's called Clare London Calling. You'll find it on Facebook. I'm hoping now to bring some things into it that are a little bit exciting, a little bit different, just for a smaller group of people who you know, or you hope you know, are interested in my fiction, and where I would let people know immediately what's going on. There's been upheaval with my publisher over the last year, and so my website is not particularly up to date, but it will be, and a lot of people are refinding their way, I think, with their backlist. But I really do like to be everywhere. I'm on Instagram, I'm on BookBub. Always very, very happy for people to get in touch as well and ask any questions.
We will link up to all that good stuff so people can find you. And thank you for coming to talk to us a little bit about Romancing the Rough Diamond.
I'm just so thrilled that you enjoyed it. It's lovely. That is, well, if that is the ultimate for an author, isn't it? And somebody says we enjoyed it. And thank you for inviting me. It's been great.